There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from doing everything right and still ending up in the wrong place. For the millennial generation, those born between 1981 and 1996, life has felt less like a journey and more like a series of software updates for a world that has already crashed. You were told to follow your passion, get the degree, and pay your dues. But then 2008 happened. Then a global pandemic happened. And now, the very milestones that define adulthood, owning a home, starting a family, feeling secure, have become luxury goods. Today, we're diving into the psychology of millennials. It's not just about student loans and avocado toast jokes. It's about what happens to the human brain when the social contract it was raised on is torn up in real time. Let's talk about the self-esteem movement. If you're a millennial, you were the test subject for the everyone gets a trophy era. Psychologically, this created a high baseline for expectations. But here's the twist. Research suggests that while millennials might score high on measures of self-importance, they also report record-breaking levels of anxiety and perfectionism. It's a phenomenon often called the ego gap. You were told you were special, yet you're living in a hyper-competitive digital world where you're constantly reminded you're replaceable. This creates a state of chronic inadequacy. You aren't just competing with your neighbor, you're competing with a filtered version of everyone on Earth. Your brain is essentially running a race on a treadmill that someone else is speeding up. In psychology, there's a concept called emerging adulthood, but millennials have been stuck in it for decades. When you can't hit the traditional markers of stability, your brain enters a state of prolonged uncertainty. This triggers something called allostatic load, the wear and tear on the body and mind when you're under constant low-level stress. It's the feeling of being in a waiting room. You're waiting to start your life, waiting for the real career, waiting for the housing market to crash so you can finally have a backyard. Living in a permanent state of not yet doesn't just make you frustrated, it changes your nervous system. It's why millennials are often the generation that cannot relax, even when they finally have a moment of peace. Critics often call millennials entitled or unloyal in the workplace. But from a psychological perspective, this is a rational adaptation. If you watched your parents get laid off after 20 years of loyalty, or if you've been through multiple once-in-a-generation economic crises before age 35, your schema, your internal map of how the world works, changes. You don't job hop because you're bored. You do it because the institution proved it won't protect you. This is learned cynicism. Millennials are the first generation to widely destigmatize therapy, which is vital, but they're also the first to realize that you can't self-care your way out of a broken systemic reality. The truth is, millennials aren't failing at adulthood. They're navigating a map that no longer matches the territory. If you feel like you're falling behind, remember, your brain is reacting exactly how a healthy brain should react to an unstable environment. The millennial struggle isn't a character flaw, it's a psychological response to a world in transition. If you're still in the waiting room, know you're not alone. The progress bar might be slow, but the person behind it is doing a lot more work than they get credit for.